Today, we're diving into a really fascinating perspective that completely reframes spirituality. Instead of seeing it as just a bunch of restrictive rules, what if it was actually the key to unlocking humanity's greatest, most incredible potential? Let's dig into this hidden power.
Just think about it for a second. When somebody brings up spirituality or religion, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For so many of us, it's a list of rules, right? A long list of don'ts and thou shalt nots. It just feels like it's all about what we're supposed to avoid.
This focus on restriction, it creates a pretty big disconnect. It's really easy to see why a lot of scientifically minded people or, social activists might look at that and just see something that holds humanity back, not something that pushes it forward. It just seems outdated, totally irrelevant to making real progress.
Okay, so check out the contrast here. On one side, you have the common view. Spirituality is just a rule book, maybe some kind of an insurance policy for whatever comes next. But the source material for today's explainer completely flips that question. It asks, what amazing, positive, incredible things become possible when this knowledge is actually applied? What could we build with it?
And this leads to a pretty surprising idea. We tend to think of science and spirituality as being in total conflict, but maybe that's a pretty modern misconception. Let's take a look at a connection that's been almost completely forgotten. What if this whole separation we see today is actually a pretty recent invention? What if the very foundations of science actually grew out of ancient spiritual institutions? It's kind of a radical thought, I know, but the history here might really surprise you. And this timeline just lays it all out. Ancient temples weren't just for worship. They were these incredible hubs of knowledge. They guided the construction of the pyramids. They pioneered advanced medicine and agriculture. Then, when Rome fell, it was the monasteries and Islamic schools that kept that spirit of learning alive through the Dark Ages. Our whole modern scientific era is literally built on a foundation it has mostly forgotten about. So if this deep connection between science and spirit has been lost, where do we even look to find it again? Well, this brings us to the core source for this whole explainer, a work called The Grail Message by an author named Abdrishan, which claims to offer a fresh perspective on this very knowledge. The central claim here is, well, it's monumental. The idea is that there's a true spiritual knowledge out there that's not just another philosophy, but a framework so vast that it contains and surpasses everything humanity currently knows, from quantum physics all the way to classical art. The whole shebang. And Abdrishan himself puts it pretty starkly. He's basically saying that the knowledge he's presenting is so immense that even the most brilliant minds would struggle to grasp even a tiny fraction of its power. He saw people reaching for, insignificant things, while this massive value was sitting right in front of them. To put this into perspective, the source suggests that our current understanding is kind of limited by our physical senses. It argues that a deeper grasp of this knowledge often only clicks into place after this life, in what it calls the ethereal realm, a non-physical plane where our perspective isn't so boxed in, allowing us to finally see the bigger picture.
And here is the incredible promise. According to Abdushan, humanity's greatest achievements, our true masterpieces, are still in the future. We're talking about achievements that will be so profound, they will make everything we've done so far look like we were just playing in a sandbox.
So this is all pointing towards a prophesied future era for humanity, one the source calls the coming kingdom of God, where this higher spiritual knowledge is finally put into practice in the real world. So what does this new era actually look like? Well, it's a world where this true spiritual knowledge is applied to every single field of life. It's where those promised masterpieces are finally built. It's an age of unimaginable progress, where humanity can finally enjoy all the treasures of creation with real humility and gratitude. But there's a catch, and it is a very, very big one. Gaining access to this knowledge and being part of this year era has a really strict prerequisite. Let's just call it the price of admission. And here it is, stated as plainly as can be. Access to this new era isn't based on your intelligence, your wealth, or what you say you believe. It's based on a single absolute requirement: You have to completely shed all of your personal faults and any harmful tendencies. According to this teaching, there are absolutely no shortcuts and no exceptions. I know, that sounds incredibly demanding, right? It's a high bar. So why? Why is the standard so absolute? Why would this knowledge require such a degree of, moral purity? Well, the reasoning behind this super strict rule is actually really sobering, and when you think about it, it's incredibly logical. Powerful knowledge in the wrong hands is just a recipe for catastrophe. The source points to our own history. I mean, look at what we did with just a tiny glimpse into the energy of the atom. Now, just imagine giving even greater power to a humanity that hasn't overcome its greed, its anger, or its selfishness. It would be guaranteeing our own destruction. Now, it's really important to understand that this system isn't about the arbitrary judgment of some angry god in the sky. It's described as something much more like a law of physics, an impersonal, natural mechanism that just works. And this is a huge distinction. The source separates itself from what it calls hellfire preaching, which it says is just based on fear and superstition. Instead, it talks about spiritual laws that are as impersonal and reliable as gravity. They just operate based on cause and effect, which means that every single one of us is solely responsible for the fate we are creating for ourselves.
The mechanics are actually pretty straightforward. If you violate these natural laws, the automatic consequence is what people have metaphorically described as hell, fire, and brimstone. But if you align yourself with them and obey them, the natural result is ascent, heavenly bliss, and the creation of a true utopia right here on Earth. And so this brings the entire massive idea right back down to us, to the here and now. If life truly operates under an impersonal, universal law of cause and effect, then the final question is really the only one that matters. What results are you creating with your thoughts, your words, and your actions right now?